Perfect. All right, so hello everyone. My name is Cristina Laporda. Although my last name implies that I might be Italian or Spanish, I'm actually Greek. So a few years back, I found myself in the UK having to prepare international, within many quotation marks, students for the academic reality of a UK university. Myself being Greek, trust me, that was not very easy. And more or less, this is how I gradually ended up working with intercultural competence within my PhD. I'm now at my final stage, if you can say that 2 years left is a final stage for a PhD, but anyway. And through the last 4 years that I have been trying to work with my PhD, which is about how we can foster the development of intercultural competence within our EAP classes, I ended up realizing that it can be fun. It doesn't have to be very serious or very dramatic. It can be fun. And some of the best classes that I had were those where I taught using stand-up comedy. So I'm going to share that with you. But of course, first, I will again start with what I always do. I will start talking a little bit about intercultural competence and the definitions. So intercultural competence is not intercultural sensitivity. It is not necessarily about adaptation. Intercultural competence is a process through which we learn how to appropriately and effectively interact with people who are different. And these are two of my favorite, actually, definitions that I share with you. A comment I always like making about those two particular definitions is that the word culture is very cleverly left out of those definitions, maybe because it is a term that, may create confusion and is still under debate as to its actual definition. So intercultural competence has to do about interaction. I like very much Derdorf's comment that all interactions can be considered. I hope I can use a laser. Yes, that all interactions can be considered to be intercultural because we all have our own identities, our cultures or subcultures, if you like, and these all affect the way we interact, our expectations, etc. So effective and appropriate are two words that affect a lot what ends up as our intercultural competence or the level of intercultural competence we have developed. So many dimensions have to be considered when we talk about an interaction. And if we want to talk about the importance of those two adjectives being used, effectiveness may be a bit individualistic. So if I achieve my goal within an interaction, I may consider this interaction as effective, but it may not necessarily have been appropriate. So appropriateness has more to do with the exchange, and it is more considered from the other person's point of view. So this is, I believe, quite important, especially when we consider our students and how we prepare them for the UK university reality. If we want to narrow it down to EAP classes, of course, but if we want to keep a broader mind in terms of intercultural competence as global citizenship, for example, then appropriateness may get an even higher importance. So a few things that literature also has pointed out, which I believe are essential, are that unfortunately achieving intercultural competence or developing, if you like, intercultural competence is not necessarily a guaranteed thing. So research says that some of us may never develop our intercultural competencies, and that's not good, but it is a reality probably. The second important thing is that it cannot necessarily be developed by simple exposure, because simple exposure doesn't necessarily mean that I reflect upon my experiences and I try to learn from my experiences, or I know how to empathize, for example, and then I gradually develop different behaviors. And the last thing, which is quite important, is that intercultural competence is a process, so it cannot be fully achieved. We can develop it, we can foster its development, we can hope that we develop it a bit more for particular contexts, for particular subgroups or orientations of the world, as literature mentions. And this is actually why, for my research and for the preparation of my classes, I try to use Darla Derdorf's process model of intercultural competence. So what she talks about is the fact that we need to have certain attitudes developed so that we are open up to changing our behavior. But this is usually not enough if we don't have the knowledge, the comprehension of the difference. So this is also a little part, and this is, I think, a part where, as language teachers, we could assist our students a lot. Gradually also helping them develop skills like listening carefully, observing, etc. And of course, through the desired internal outcome, we can hopefully reach some level of intercultural competence where the external outcome is the effective and appropriate communication and behavior. So in essence, we talk about having as realistic intercultural goals more broader elements of intercultural competence rather than an end goal, because there is no end goal actually. And these are some of the comments made in most literature and in Derdorf's 2020 paper. Now, this of course takes us to academic English, to our BALIP community. Well, the BALIP competency framework for EAP practitioners both mentions students and the EAP practitioners' role within preparing our students for their academic, for their new academic cultures. And it is also quite interesting, the choice of words. So if you have a look here, it mentions that the EAP practitioner's role should be, in short, to bridge the gap between students' prior learning experiences and their ability to effectively participate in the target learning culture's academic activity. So in short, in one way or another, we are expected to develop the intercultural competence of our students. Now, this to me raises huge questions. Am I trained or skilled to do that? Do I know how to? Do today's students have the same needs as students, let's say, pre-COVID, if not going even further back? Who equips me with the skills to prepare the students? So to cut a long story short, this is how we ended up with stand-up comedy. Now, of course, the question would be why stand-up comedy? Actually, it started by me having a look at, at sitcoms and films, etc., and trying to find bits and pieces that I could use because I like using authentic material in my classes. And usually we always talk about how important it is to use not only academic language, but also spoken English. So I felt that stand-up comedy, of course, combines them all, the variety of accents, because the stand-up comedians, especially that I use, usually have different accents. So that's a listening practice in itself. But of course, if you like, the most important thing is that, of course, many stand-up comedians talk about cultural things. So they touch themes and topics that are rarely, if ever, included in textbooks or in our traditional EAP material. And of course, if students are open-minded and prepared, I think they will have fun. Number 5 is within question marks, because you may have different reactions depending on the material that you use. And I will try to challenge you a little bit today.